Hello everybody and welcome to our next video for the depreciation practice exercise related to the sum of the year's digits depreciation method. In previous videos we covered the other methods, the straight line, the units of production method, and the double declining balance depreciation methods. So this one we're going to be covering a relatively rare method known as the sum of the year's digits method. It's not one that's used very commonly, but it's helpful to know how to do it because depending on what types of problems you're dealing with, textbook problems, or maybe even in real life, you may or may not see this, so it's helpful to know how to do it. So in this particular video, we're only going to go through the basic method, the main scenario where there's a full life used. In the other videos, we covered the short life, the long life. Now we're just covering a standard life, just to familiarize you with the actual method itself, because it is so rare. So in this case, we have the same data set as the other videos. Lenny's Widget Factory purchased a machine costing $257,500 with an expected life of 5 years and an estimated $20,000 salvage value. The machine was placed into service on January 1st, the beginning of the year. Now, the next data set gives you all of the units of production, which again, that's only needed for the units of production method. So just keep that in mind. You may see it in your problem, but you don't need it unless you're dealing with that method. So we are trying to prepare the depreciation schedule using the sum of the year's digits method. Now, with this method, I've created the template here. As a reminder, you may not need all of this data in your actual schedule, but I'm putting it in here just to show you what information is relevant to depreciation itself. So the sum of the year's digits method is in some ways similar to the straight line method and the units of production method in that we start off right off the bat depreciating only the amount of depreciable cost rather than starting from the full amount, the net book value, like we do a double declining balance. So remember that depreciable cost, it is indeed the amount we want to depreciate. It's not the full cost, it's how much of that cost do we want to depreciate. So that's always going to be the cost, $257,500 minus the $20,000 salvage value. So that means we want to depreciate $237,500, and that's every single year. That's what we want to depreciate. Every single year, that's the total amount. I don't mean we want to depreciate it that year, but that's our base to start from. We're going to multiply this by something. Now, the beginning net book value, which again, you really need that for the double declining balance method. It's purely informational for this method, but that's going to be for year one. It's the full cost. Now, the depreciation rate is where this method gets, I don't want to say complex, but unusual, maybe. The whole idea behind the sum of the year's digits depreciation method, that name comes from the fact that it sums up the year digits. In other words, year 1 plus year 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if we sum those up, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, basically, you'll see we come up with 15. I'm just going to put SYD, sum of the year's digits. Bold that and maybe even highlight it. So that is going to be our denominator for every year's fraction. When we calculate a depreciation rate, we're dividing something by that 15 to get a rate. Now, sum of the year's digits is an accelerated method similar to double declining balance. In other words, you're going to have more of your expense up front and less later on. So the way this works is yes, we have 15 as the denominator, so it's going to be something divided by 15 to get that year's rate. It's going to be the reverse order. So for year one, we're using 5 divided by 15, 0.33, basically a third. For year 2, we're using 4 divided by 15. For year 3, it just so happens to be 3 divided by 15, just right in the middle. For year 4, we're going back up and using 2. And then for year 5, we're completely reversed and using 1. So you can see how it's accelerated. It starts high, works its way down. Now, what this is going to be multiplied by is the depreciable cost every single year. So it's going to be the same base that it's multiplying it by. It's just that the rate is different. So for year one's depreciation expense, $237,500 multiplied by 0.33 gives us $79,167 in depreciation. Of course, that also becomes year one's accumulated depreciation. That's the only thing we've accumulated. And the net book value is always going to be the beginning net book value minus that year's depreciation expense. That ending net book value carries forward to become next year's beginning net book value. And again, every year we're starting with the depreciable cost. Whether you have it in the schedule or whether you have it somewhere up above, that's what you're going to be multiplying by. And then the rate, 27%. Now, year two's accumulated depreciation is the balance from year one plus this new depreciation expense from year two. The ending net book value is, again, beginning net book value minus that year's depreciation, minus that year's depreciation expense. Carry it forward to the next year. Again, we are multiplying depreciable cost, which is the same amount every year, by the percentage, which would be different every year. Keep adding in that new depreciation. And keep subtracting out the depreciation expense. So depreciation expense again for year four. Add that to the depreciation expense. Carry it forward. So you can see a lot of repetition here. Finally, we get right down to $20,000. Now, depending on how you round these, if you round them, I just left them in the formula in Excel, but if you were to round them, then you may end up with a different amount here. So hopefully that helps to clarify what we're doing with the sum of the year's digits method. The real trick is just understanding, well, two tricks. Understanding, first of all, what does that name mean? How do you get the sum of the year's digits? And then the fact that you start with the last digit first and reverse order all the way down. But the second trick is remembering that you're always going to multiply by the same depreciable cost every single year. And your check figure at the end is that your ending net book value should equal your salvage value. If it doesn't, you know you have a problem there. So hopefully this has helped to clarify the sum of the year's digits depreciation method. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to talking to you in the later videos.